Welcome to SAMexpert TV, my friends. We haven't been live in a while. We're back with our live Q&A sessions and Microsoft licensing updates this month of April 2024. Let me do a very quick technical check that everything works well. Hopefully it does. And let me know in the comments. Say hello. Let me know in the comments whether you have all the audio and video coming through. And we'll shortly begin. Yeah, it seems like everything is working. Again, welcome to SAMexpert TV, our dear friends and followers and subscribers and those who are new to this channel. If you are new, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Alexander Golev. I am the CEO of the company that is called SAMexpert. This is our channel. We're a business consulting company that specializes in Microsoft agreements, cloud and licensing costs, and compliance audit defense. We're not Microsoft partners. We don't sell Microsoft licenses. We couldn't care less about Microsoft. We help you save money on everything that is Microsoft related. So as usual, though, as you may have inferred from what I just said, we're going to talk about Microsoft today. And after that, after the initial presentation, I'll respond to some of your questions. Firstly, please use chat to type your questions. I'll respond to those. And I have a few that came through email, through LinkedIn, through other channels to our support line, which I think would be interesting to the audience of this channel, to you. Let's begin with what's happened with Microsoft this month. Microsoft has been pretty static recently with Microsoft licensing. Nothing extraordinary happened until April. And even in April, when we opened the Microsoft product terms and update, it first seemed like nothing extraordinary happened, but actually did. And it would be an understatement to say that that particular move that I'm going to be talking about right now, Microsoft's most recent move, is stunning. It is a cost increase in disguise. Everyone should pay attention to it. It affects everyone around the world. At least enterprises. And what happened is, you probably have already heard, and if you follow us on LinkedIn, we wrote about it. We wrote an article on our website about it. Microsoft unbundled Teams from the Microsoft Office 365 and Microsoft 365 suites worldwide. They did it before in Europe in October last year. Now they decided to harmonize subscription plans across the world. So it's a worldwide change. So that unbundling of Teams means that from April 2024, so from the 1st of this month, we're already mid-month, Microsoft 365 and Office 365 suites without Teams are available at a reduced price, which potentially may lower costs if you want to use Zoom or Slack or something like it instead of Teams. By all means, subscription plans without Teams costs, enterprise plans cost $2.25 less than traditional enterprise plans with Teams. So that's the cost reduction. You don't want to use Teams, you don't have to pay for it, it's $2.25 less. Great. What if you want to use Teams? And here when it becomes complicated. If you are an existing subscriber of enterprise plans, so let's start with the most expensive, with the enterprise plans, E3, E5, and whatnot, Microsoft Office 365 E1. It's another enterprise plan. So if you are on those plans, you may continue renewing your subscriptions. If you renew the subscription you have with Teams, you want to keep Teams, nothing changes for you. This unbundling does not affect you. But if you are a new subscriber, then you have no choice. If you want one of those plans, you have to buy them without Teams. There are no more Teams included in those enterprise plans in Microsoft 365 E3, E5, Office 365 E3, E5, and E1. No Teams there. which means you have to pay for it. And you would have thought if Microsoft reduced the price by $2.25 per user per month, then bringing back Teams will be the same as it was before. Actually not, because the new Teams license is called Teams Enterprise, and Teams Enterprise costs $5.25. So across that spectrum of enterprise plans, now all the new subscribers, and please bear with me, it's not really only new subscribers. I'll explain in a sec what I mean. All the new subscribers will have to pay $3 per user per month more than the existing subscribers. If that is not a price increase on the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 Enterprise Bundle, tell me what is it if it's not a price increase? It is a price increase. And although in the EU, in the European Economic Alliance and Switzerland, Microsoft was compelled to do that, to unbundle Teams, because they just didn't want to have legal and regulatory burdens in the European Union. They did it to prevent that sort of problems in Europe. They didn't have to do it worldwide. Either something is happening or they just liked the effect of the unbundling in Europe. They looked at it for 6 months, thought, you know what, we're going to do the same. And by doing that, raise the prices on the overall bundle. And when they talk about renewing the existing subscription, if there are any changes in your company structure, if you switch from a plan to a plan, it's yet unclear whether you will be able to carry over that existing subscription. Mergers and acquisitions, that's a change of tenant. Tenant migrations from region to region. Switching to MCAE. I will talk about MCAE after I finish this conversation about Teams. We'll talk about it. So switching from an enterprise agreement to a new agreement structure, is it actually keeping the existing subscription? Will they be able to transact it as keeping the existing subscription? I'd like to see that. We're too early in the process to have any statistics yet. We'll see. We'll see. It's only half months passed since then. People are concerned. And percentage-wise, let me show you something. Super source. So you'll find these figures, you'll find this table in the article on our website. This is the percentage growth of the budgets if a new subscriber or somebody with changed circumstances wants to have an enterprise plan with Teams. That is the growth. And considering that on the enterprise plans, the predominant one is Microsoft 365 E3, the effect on the majority of subscribers is 8% price increase. That's before any other planned price increases and whatnot, just by keeping Teams. Or just by, well, again, if you're an existing subscriber, you may continue using the old plan. It does not affect you as long as you change nothing. You keep your existing subscription structure. Another unanswered question in this regard is, what if you're migrating from E3 to E5? That is not keeping existing subscription. So if Microsoft convinced you that this year, when you renew your enterprise agreement, they said, you know what, you need E5. Your IT security said, fine, we'll drop our existing IT security subscriptions for any other products, and we'll take E5 because, well, strictly speaking, it is a good package. It is good. Switching from E3 to E5 is not keeping an existing subscription. So you will have to take a plan without Teams. And therefore, if you plan for a cost, now you have to put on another 5% on top of that. Consider that. Consider that. What can you do about it if you're a clever enterprise, if you have somebody who knows how to negotiate? You can work with us. It's a bit of a plug. You can work with us. We can negotiate it for you. I think it's a perfect chance to say, dear Microsoft, We didn't plan for it. We're not getting additional value discounted for us. The downside of that is, well, you're asking for an additional discount, so it may be that you won't get that discount, any other discount, for example, on Copilot. We'll get to that. So this is how everybody is affected by this global move, by this global unbundling of teams from Microsoft 365 and Office 365 plans. What shall we talk about next? Again, tell me if this is not a disguised price increase. Smaller companies and frontline and business plans are less affected. So if you look at those plans, yes, we also added a comparison here, so you could see what's going to happen if you take a plan without teams and then you decide to add teams. But fortunately, you don't have to do this. So you need to understand that frontline and business plans continue having a choice. So you have a choice either to take a plan without teams if you want to use Zoom or Slack or something else, or take a plan with teams. Those with teams plans are still available for frontline and business plans. Just don't make the mistake of taking it without teams and then suddenly waking up and saying, "Oh, actually should have taken teams," because then you'll pay a little bit too much compared to what you are benefiting by taking a plan without teams. So for those of you who are smaller businesses on smaller subscriptions like Microsoft 365 business plans, standard, basic, professional. Is it professional? Sorry, let me check it. Don't remember them from my memory. Standard, business, and premium. Then in that case, just remember that you have a choice. And we do have feedback from people who don't like teams, and they're happy about this. There is a discount. It's not as much as on enterprise plans. You can see that. So the smaller the plan is, the smaller is the discount on teams. And by the way, bringing teams back still costs you $5.25. Congratulations. So does it address any competition concerns? Maybe. Microsoft still, if you compare the price of Teams Enterprise with commercial plans on other similar messengers or similar collaboration tools, Teams still is the cheapest. With all this in mind, it is still the cheapest. I don't think there's any plan. So last time I checked, Slack costed about $8, Zoom costed about $12. So yeah, they're more expensive. If you like them, why not? So if you're keen to keep competing products, well, take the plans without Teams. That's the thing. Do we have any questions yet in the chat? Not yet. So, but by all means, I just remind you, this is a live event. You're watching a live show. Please type your questions in the chat and let's discuss your questions. So our advice right now is negotiate if you have to switch. If this affects you, if you can continue your existing subscriptions as is. If you want to keep Teams, you don't want Teams, switch to new subscriptions. Simple as that. But be careful. Once you switch, and then if you want to bring Teams back, that's going to cost you more than than it would have costed otherwise. We're still getting questions. So this is all about the update. There are a few other licensing updates this month, but nothing really extraordinary there. Nothing that affects such a wide audience. There are, as usual, small changes to terms and conditions, product availability on products that are not very popular. There's a change coming, which we'll have a separate video about, into Power Apps licensing. It's a big change. It's a fundamental change, but it's a bit preliminary to talk about it. So let's talk about it next month, or maybe we'll release a separate video about it. I can't really promise you right now what it's going to be. But we will talk about it, obviously, with all the pricing calculations and comparisons of plans as we usually present such topics. I want to talk about Copilot. Because interesting things are surrounding Copilot now, and we did make videos about it. But to remind you, if you didn't see that, if you're not following all the news about Microsoft, what happened is recently Microsoft promised. They haven't yet. Promised to open Microsoft 365 Copilot, not GitHub Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot to frontline workers. And it raises a few questions. Question number one, why? We still, and we talked to a few implementation partners, they still not really clear about where is the business case. What is the use case for, say, a call center professional to use the full Microsoft 365 Copilot? They probably need the sales Copilot. They are drawn to Dynamics 365. But full Office 365 Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot is probably just not in the area. They don't create documents. They don't analyze the data. They answer calls. They need a different tool. Delivery drivers, what are they going to use Copilot for? So it's nice that it's going to be open to frontline workers, and it's actually I'm very curious about use cases, because I'm personally very interested in finding and seeing those use cases, because, well, it's a fantastic tool. It's just whether that's a target audience, that's the question. Because right now the picture is the majority of companies are, say majority, 40% across our client base, at least piloting Copilot. But then again, at least and at most piloting Copilot. They are not using Copilot in a day-to-day business yet, for everybody, or at least for the majority of people in the company. So these are still pilot deployments. These are still deployments to either enthusiasts or advanced information workers, those who crunch the data crunchers, or content writers. Although content writers are probably much better off with ChatGPT and Gemini. And that's where we are. We've heard recently a rumor that we couldn't confirm at all. We tried everything. We tried various inquiries. We couldn't confirm that. The rumor was that Microsoft doesn't see the uptake they expected for Copilot. And that is why they so quickly, again, that person that spread that rumor said that is why they so quickly opened Copilot to business plans faster than expected. And now they're giving this to frontline workers. Who knows? Maybe they have additional capacity. Maybe the uptake is not as fast. But the moves are curious. However, we're still bullish on Microsoft in that regard, because never underestimate the ability of Microsoft to execute. This company very quickly learns from its own mistakes. They are quite agile, especially recently, and they have a roadmap that looks a few years ahead. They know exactly what new additions, what new products, add-ons, what new movements will be. And then again, they're not afraid of adjusting. So interesting times. And by the way, if you are brave enough to tell me in the chat, in your comments, what is your view on Copilot, please share. Really, it would be very, very interesting to see. The other question that we revisit almost every live like this, I wanted to say every month. We haven't been live here for 3 months. Every time is what's going to happen with enterprise agreement, because nothing solid. But rumors are getting more focused. They solidify. Nothing solid yet. That Microsoft may start moving enterprise agreement customers to MCAE. So what is MCAE? It's effectively the same as CSP, but directly with Microsoft. And it's bundled for enterprise clients. So enterprise agreement clients are already being moved one by one to this new MCAE, Microsoft Customer Agreement for Enterprise licensing agreement. But right now, EA is still available. The rumor is enterprise agreement will stop being available, either to certain segments or maybe to everyone. When, we don't know. Is it going to be like a one-off switch like this? We also don't believe that. But certainly we should start watching this space. And there are a few problems with switching to MCAE. Firstly, there is no discount structure. Enterprise agreement has a discount structure. The bigger you are, the bigger discounts you get off the price list. MCAE doesn't have it. Product availability is different. Azure, Azure is different. Stuff like, for example, enterprise dev test subscriptions are still not a part of MCAE. And other features, centralized billing is different. I don't know if you've noticed, those who work with Azure, they know, but software-wise, back office-wise, Azure, through an enterprise agreement and through CSP, which is exactly the same as MCAE, are completely different products. They have different feature sets. I mean, saying completely, that's an overstatement, but there are license management, cost management, and discounting features which differ. So it's not a one-to-one transition. You can't just take an enterprise agreement tenant and move it across to MCAE. It's not happening that way. It's very interesting to see how it's all going to be implemented. Again, product availability. Licensing features are different. Software assurance doesn't exist. It's not a one-to-one switch. So watch this space and get prepared. And if you have questions, come to us. Let's chat about it. The other thing I wanted to also take is we received a question a couple of days ago on this channel, which I think it's worth mentioning. The viewer of the channel asked us, where is it written that Windows Server, when it's licensed in a cluster, say in a VMware or any other cluster where machines move, that it cannot be licensed within the server standard without software assurance? So I'm going nitty-gritty here, but it's a licensing question. Without software assurance per virtual machine, where does it say that you need to license for maximum capacity, and this is why Windows Server data center licenses are preferred? It's not saying. It's not saying like this. Microsoft product terms doesn't say it anywhere. You won't find that max capacity in any of the terms in Microsoft product terms. But let me explain you why. Because in over 100 audits and over 300 reviews that I was a part of, this has always been Microsoft's approach. I was taught by Microsoft back in 2008, I think, that this is the approach. You must license for maximum capacity, which means even if your host can only run 8 virtual machines, but there are 30 machines in the cluster, Microsoft doesn't care. You need to license for 30 virtual machines on each host. That's why data center with unlimited virtualization was the go-to license. And when we officially made a query to Microsoft, please explain it to us. When you could still query Microsoft officially about licensing terms, that was about in 2010. The response was to refer to the rule that a license must be assigned before it's used. So therefore, this is the suggestion. If something happens on that cluster and all those machines suddenly move to the host, one host, this host must already have the licenses assigned to that host. It must already have them before that happens. Or licenses must have software assurance, but that only happened with Windows Server 2022. Now you may assign licenses still to the host, but they may travel together with virtual machines. Before Windows Server 2022, that license mobility didn't exist. And therefore, this is why, from that rule that license must be assigned before it's used, from that rule stems that it's better to use data center licenses. As long as you have more than 7 virtual machines in a cluster, data center licenses are always cheaper. So yeah, Microsoft licensing is not always obvious. Sometimes some things must be inferred by looking at other rules. What we say in the trainings on this channel, we have some training material. We almost stopped doing training material but everything that we have here is still relevant. If an update is required, we're going to re-release, run a new training session. Windows Server 2025 is rumored to be released in November this year. You can expect an updated training for us. So yeah, that is the answer. That is the answer to that question. So we have a question in the chat. So Lukasz is asking, I wanted to ask about licensing System Center on virtual machines, clients. Do you mean client operating systems? In an on-premises virtual environment, can it be based on a licensing model per individual VM? I think Microsoft does not clearly define this. No, it's actually pretty clear. It's actually pretty clear. So if you have current licenses for System Center with software assurance, this is a requirement, or on a subscription, and we're talking about servers, not clients yet, servers that are managed by System Center, you may license them per virtual machine. Client operating systems like VDIs, they require different kinds of licenses. They require client management licenses, and that has always been per operating system, not per server. So yes, you can do that. If you, however, for some reason drop software assurance on your System Center, you have perpetual licenses, then you have to assign them for, as I just explained, same as with Windows Server, for the maximum capacity. And if you have old System Center data center licenses, you have to assign them to hosts. Yeah, so yeah, Lucas just said, I mean, they are reporting to System Center server. We call them managed devices and endpoints, whether those are servers or clients. In that case, so let's talk about servers. I'll repeat what I just said. There are two ways to license managed servers by System Center. Either you assign System Center data center to each host, and then all the VMs are covered unlimited. Or now, from System Center 2022, you may assign them per virtual machine. Same rules as for Windows Server, at least 8 core licenses for each virtual machine. It's clear. It is there. It's clear. So there's no doubt about it. And another question. Another question, SQL Server for unlimited virtualization. That's fun. So for some reason, I don't know why it's not clear, but we had 2 people asking about the same thing in the comments on the channel recently. The question was, if I assign SQL Server standard licenses to the host, will it cover all the virtual machines on the host? No, it won't. That's the answer. Whatever the type of licenses is. That is available to SQL Server Enterprise licenses. If you assign SQL Server Enterprise licenses to the host, which is, be careful with that. Calculate the savings, because it's not always the most economical option. It's borderline. Most of the time, what we've seen, it's not a good one. Anyway, nevertheless, you want to do that. If you assign SQL Server Enterprise licenses to the host, they must be with software assurance as well. Then you can run as many SQL Server virtual machines, instances, containers, and whatnot, as many SQL servers on that host. It's called unlimited virtualization for SQL Server. SQL Server Standard assigned to the host only allows you to license the SQL Server instances in the physical operating system. If you need to license virtual machines with SQL Server, then you still assign licenses to the host. That's the rule, but you kind of calculate it per virtual machine. You need to what am I trying to say here? You need to license each VM. There's no unlimited virtualization for SQL Server Standard. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for being with us. If you have any more questions, you still have a chance. I'll give you 30 seconds to type your questions. I'll take it where we can talk about it. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming to this live. We will go back. Well, one thing about making promises, don't make promises. we will go back with audio and video events soon here and on LinkedIn. And I suggest you follow us on LinkedIn because we're going to run audio events on LinkedIn more frequently than video events. Audio events where you can actually participate in those events and ask your questions live if you want to. You can, you maybe raise your hand. We'll give you a mic. You ask your questions. This is, we haven't tried them yet. But please follow us there. We're going to discuss everything related to Microsoft and how Microsoft cost fluctuations and licensing changes affect your IT budgets. That's what we are ultimately about, saving your money, letting you buy more licenses and more cloud for less money. Thanks very much, and see you soon on SAMexpert TV. By the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button, please. Cheers.